Hello, Wolf Pack. No, this is not Wolf. This is his much funnier partner, Catastrophe. Wolf won't be joining us today, sadly, for this special. However, you've been mostly critical of the videos we've been posting that rag on the newer episodes of MLP. So we decided to put together a list that describes the episodes we hate the most. This is the top 10 worst episodes of My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. Now, just for the record, this isn't just our opinion. I actually analyzed a few lists that Brony forums have posted up about what their worst episodes were. So we kind of combined the two, their lists and our opinions on which episodes are the absolute worst. And if you like these episodes, good for you. Remember, this is just our silly opinion, so don't take the video too seriously. We hope you'll enjoy what we have to present, though, because let's prepare for this list. Number 10. The Mysterious Mare Duel. Yes, this is a very strange Rainbow Dash episode. This episode begins with the writers praising Rainbow Dash for the great character she is and makes fun of BronyCon by having the Rainbow Dash fan club. However, it does a complete 180 and goes from praising Rainbow Dash to criticizing her in an instant. Rainbow Dash starts out as this noble hero who everybody loves, much like out in the real world, how everybody praises Rainbow Dash for being basically the poster character for My Little Pony, the series. However, the writers seem to want to make us hate Dash, because they turn her around and say she's a braggart who does nothing but show off and is egotistical. We know this has been coming for a while about Rainbow Dash's ego being the source of conflict in an episode, but it was not very well executed, especially since it spends half the episode praising Rainbow Dash, only for us to hate her and want her to suffer, to the point where you actually feel sorry for her in the end anyway. How did they teach the lesson? Well, a new superhero called the Mysterious Mare Duel, who looks like the love child between Batman and the Spirit, shows up and steals Rainbow Dash's thunder. Then we're treated to Rainbow Dash's transformation from a hero into a villain. Yes, the character we love starts to become a villain. Rainbow Dash tries to show up the Mare Duel, only to become humiliated every time in her efforts, and everyone moves on. Even Scootaloo, who abandons her hero, Rainbow Dash, for this entirely new pony she knows nothing about, which is so out of character. But it turns out, spoiler alert, the Mare Duel is one of the characters we've seen before in the episode. We won't tell exactly who, but you'll probably get a few hints here and there as to who it is. But in the end, it was a plan compromised by all of the main six to use Mare Duel to make Rainbow Dash jealous of not being a hero anymore because they're sick of her bragging. How do they teach her this lesson? They teach Rainbow Dash that it's bad to brag about your heroics and your accomplishments by bragging about their own heroics and accomplishments. Yeah, the lesson kind of got botched there. It's so hypocritical. The main six give this lesson about how it's bad to brag, only for them to end up teaching lesson by bragging. I assumed that the writers intended for something like, let's fight fire with fire, but it did a poor job explaining it. While not the worst episode in the series, this episode is very hated by Brony fans. I actually see this ranked among the top 3 most of the lists I checked out, which is odd. This episode doesn't seem that harmful, and compared to the other stuff Wolf's reviewing, I don't see why it gets so much hate. Nevertheless, it is definitely worthy to be on this list, mostly because of a botched-up lesson and a complete trashing of Rainbow Dash's character. Number 9. Too Many Pinkie Pies. I believe the title tells you exactly what the problem is. Now, Pinkie Pie is one of those characters that you either love or you hate. You either love her wacky antics and incredibly humorous moments, or you absolutely hate her for being annoying, stupid, and pretentious. Pinkie Pie is like a pill. It can sometimes be good for you, but you can only handle it in small doses, because too much of it can end up killing you. It turns out this episode, Pinkie Pie, as the title implies, makes clones of herself. How? Because she apparently kept a source of magic that could have helped save Equestrian numerous times, but she decided to keep public to help herself with her first world problems. What's the conflict? Why does Pinkie Pie need to make clones? Well, it turns out Pinkie Pie doesn't have enough time to spend with each and every one of her friends. Oh no, her first world problems need answers too. Pinkie Pie clones herself, but the clones turn out to be very stupid, and believe it or not, are actually worse than Pinkie Pie. They express no intelligence, no personality, and they always chant fun, and they destroy the entire town. Now, a lot of Pinkie haters would defend that, saying that Pinkie Pie does that naturally on her own. Well, I have a love-hate relationship with Pinkie Pie. I love her at times, but sometimes I hate her. This episode definitely made me hate her even more. For starters, she causes her entire problems and make them even worse. These clones are annoying, and they express everything the Pinkie Pie haters show is right. These Pinkie Pie clones are obnoxious and annoying, and you have to spend an entire episode watching them screw up the entire town. Oh, but it gets better. It turns out the real Pinkie Pie has an existential crisis and doesn't even know whether she exists or not. Yes, because when I think of My Little Pony and making clones, I think existential crisis. How do they dispose of the clones? Well, they lure all the Pinkie Pies into a room where they force them to watch paint dry, and any one of them that expresses traits that the real Pinkie Pie doesn't have, they kill them on the spot. You know, for kids. Yes, one of the good things about this episode, and I do stretch that very thinly, is that the clones end up getting shot. So all you Pinkie Pie haters out there might actually like the last 5 minutes of this episode because we see nothing but multiple Pinkie Pies die and get killed. However, that cause might have been all for naught, since we do see that a Pinkie Pie clone might have escaped into the real world if you've seen the most recent episode. Nevertheless, the Pinkie Pie episode here is a very terrible one. It does nothing to move Pinkie Pie's character forward. If anything, it set her character back even more by showing how stupid and annoying she is by making such a foolish mistake. Too many Pinkie Pies. I believe the problem is in the title. There just was too many Pinkie Pies. Number 8. May the best pet win. Yes, sadly, another Rainbow Dash episode makes this list. What's the conflict in this episode? Well, Rainbow Dash wants a pet. And that's it. That's the entire source of conflict. Rainbow Dash wants a pet because her friends have pets, but she doesn't. And that means her friendship must not be linked to them. Yeah, Rainbow Dash wants a pet so she could fit in with her friends. Yes, because that's the reason why you want to get a pet, because everybody's doing it these days. That's the problem with this episode. The conflict isn't high enough to entertain you, even by children's TV standards. Who wants to watch their favorite cartoon character go out and get a pet? And it gets better. Fluttershy actually acts so out of character and forces Rainbow Dash into getting a pet. And we all know where this is going. She keeps suggesting the tortoise, and of course Rainbow Dash doesn't like it. Gee, do they end up together? Yes, it's true. The tortoise, as you can guess, is going to win Dash over in the end. So we go through an entire episode of Rainbow Dash abusing pets, yelling at them, and going through a monstrous competition to prove which pet is the best. The song was pretty much forgettable. If you like the song, good for you. But I personally found it kind of bland and boring, since it's just Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy talking to one another while humming it. May the Best Pet Win is not the worst episode, but it's definitely a boring episode. And a boring episode in a kids' TV show should never happen. Number 7. Dragon Quest. Yeah, you all knew a Spike episode was definitely going to be on this list. Dragon Quest is one of the few moments where Spike gets character development. And the writers, of course, completely botch it all up. For the first 10 minutes, you think it's going to be about the main 6, but then halfway in the episode, it turns out this episode was going to be about Spike. It turns out Spike doesn't know where he came from. Apparently, Celestia never explained his origin after she abducted the dragon egg and gave it to Twilight as a science fair prize, I guess. Then Spike has ever since then become Twilight's slave, brother, pet, toy, whatever. And Spike decides he wants to be his own person. So Twilight agrees to allow Spike to go off to the dragon hibernation to find his true roots, only for her and her friends to follow him because they think Spike isn't capable enough of surviving. Although that is kind of true, since we've seen Spike's numerous idiot moments in this series. In this episode, Spike finally makes it to the dragon lair, or wherever the dragons go for hibernating. Apparently it's on a volcano. And he tries to win the admiration of these jerk-ass dragons. And that's the problem. It's pretty much an episode about Spike trying to become popular with these characters who are obviously bullies and express no care or concern for him. It's actually kind of painful to watch. Spike wants to impress these dragons so hard that he doesn't even see that they don't even care for him. It's kind of like if you try to win the admiration of someone who's incapable of feeling friendship for you. These dragons are pretty much the popular kids, and Spike's the nerd who's trying to fit in by acting cool. And of course, in the end, we learn nothing about the dragons other than that they're monsters who like killing things, and Spike decides he loves being a pony who's abused by his best friends, being that this episode was entirely pointless. I do like, though, in the end, that this episode did lead up to the Gauntlet of Fire, but as far as Spike episodes go, this one is pretty cringeworthy. I definitely would give Dragon Quest a skip. Number 6. Sweet and Elite. Yeah, you all knew a Rarity episode was going to be on here too. In this episode, we focus mainly on Rarity as she goes to Canterlot to interact with the rich, apparently. I actually forgot why she is even in Canterlot, but of course it's supposed to be part of Rarity's character development. In this episode, we focus mainly on Rarity. Yes, half an hour of Rarity entertaining us. Rarity, who, by this point in the series, is still the most least favorite pony in the entire show. Some people will argue that Rarity is still unpopular today, but this episode was supposed to make us like Rarity. And I don't really like the episodes where they're trying to force us to admire some of the characters and their weird quirks. Rarity has to entertain your child for an hour, and it doesn't help that Rarity is one of the more mature ponies and doesn't have much of a character outside of being a drama queen. Rarity finds out that she wants to spread her fashion industry through the riches. This guy, who's named Fancy Pants, who might jumpstart her career because if she makes a connection with him. Odd, seeing that we don't know what exactly Fancy Pants does for a living, but he's apparently some huge figurehead in Canterlot. And basically, it's just like Dragon Quest. Rarity's trying to impress the popular characters, so that way she can get in with them. And it, of course, is very boring to watch. The song is also forgettable compared to the art of the dress. It sounds a bit vaguely similar, but not quite. And it doesn't help that Rarity pretty much ditches her friends. Like, when Twilight says that it's her birthday and she wants Rarity to come visit, she decides to lie her ass off and go party with her new rich friends. Yes, isn't that a good lesson for your children? If you have a chance of making it big with the popular characters and cherishing your friendship with your normal friends, always choose the ones who matter the most, and that's the popular kids, because they can help you even more get nice things. This episode was not entertaining, and it only made me laugh once, and that was when her friends ruined the garden party. Applejack's line in particular deserves special mention as being the only good joke in the series. Or, sorry, the whole episode. But Rarity's episode is not a very good one, and I felt like they could have done it in a lot of different ways to make her more likable. But this episode, having Rarity entertain us for the majority of it, was not exactly the best choice, considering that the main six work better off of each other if they have, like, two of the main characters at once, or at least a few more than just a single one gaining our entire attention for half an hour. I'd give Sweet and Elite a skip if I were you. Number 5. The Power Ponies. This episode was the most overrated episode in the entire series. It basically has only one joke. The ponies are superheroes. And that's pretty much it. We see pretty much a parody of the main six and Spike as famous superheroes fighting a famous supervillain in a comic book world. The joke is that they're all superheroes from DC or Marvel, and they don't know how to use their powers, and that's about it. If you're a child watching this, you probably wouldn't know who half these characters are. Some of them you might, but they picked very obscure superheroes that most children I know don't even look up to. Twilight is Iceman, Rainbow Dash is Thor, Rarity is Star Sapphire, Applejack is Wonder Woman, Pinkie Pie's the Flash, Fluttershy's the Hulk, and Spike is, of course, Robin. And they're fighting off against the most evil supervillain of all, the Joker. Mixed a little bit with Dr. Octopus in there if you count her hair extensions being tentacles. But it's not really that funny. It's like funny for about 10 seconds, but for a whole episode's length, not very. And like, is My Little Pony actually saying that Robin sucks? Because Robin's sucking hasn't been a joke for a long time. In fact, Robin's gotten very better. I play the Arkham video game series, and Robin's one of the best characters to use. But the joke is how Robin is useless, so that means Spike is useless because Spike is Robin in this world. And of course, the episode turns out the twist is it's a Spike episode, and it's about Spike's character development. They tell Spike that he's useful, oh, but don't worry, Robin is useless, because as we all know, Robin sucks in every Batman story. And the main six being superheroes, not using their powers correctly, kind of not as funny as you'd think. It does every cliche in the book of when even superheroes, that the actual characters, when they don't know how to use their powers while learning to become who they are in the comics, isn't very funny to begin with. Sometimes it is, but My Little Pony doesn't do it exactly justice. No pun intended. The Maniac is pretty much all is the Joker. Crazy, out of control. You might find it funny, but other than that, no, not very. It's just the joke is it's the Joker as a female pony. And Spike learning that he is useful after all, something he should have learned back in Dragon Quest. The only joke I think you might laugh at the most is that when Fluttershy turns into the Hulk. When she hulks out, it is very funny, but it doesn't happen until the end, meaning you have to sit through a whole episode of boredom. Plus, you might get a few laughs when the ponies actually kill some of the Joker goons in this episode. But other than that, I think this episode is way too overrated, and it relies too much on one joke. The ponies are now powerful superheroes. You might see it once, but it's not the kind of episode where you might want to see it again. Number 4. Some Pony to Watch Over Me. Okay, you all knew an Apple Bloom episode was going to be on this too. Yeah, some of these episodes are mostly focusing on individual characters rather than the main 6. But getting back on track, Apple Bloom's episode is about her being home alone, and it turns out, completely out of character, Applejack is against the idea. Applejack even went so far as to vote against Apple Bloom staying home alone to watch her house. Which is odd, seeing as how a few episodes before it confirmed that they're sisters who care for each other and know each other very well. But nope, it turns out all that meant nothing because Applejack thinks Apple Bloom is a loser. So I thought this episode was actually going to be funny because Apple Bloom being home alone sounds like she might actually get into wacky antics. But of course, Applejack has to steal the show by coming in at the last minute because she thinks her kid sister is, well, a kid who can't take care of herself and screws everything up. While we have seen Apple Bloom screw up things in the past, it was not on a destroy the entire house level. Apple Bloom spends the entire episode trying to prove to Applejack that she's capable of being an independent person. But Applejack, still completely out of character, doesn't believe her and babies her at every turn. And the joke is that Applejack thinks Apple Bloom can't take care of herself. That is until Apple Bloom does something completely stupid and moronic, like go out on her own through a dark forest to show Applejack she's brave by delivering her pies on the other side of a bayou by passing through a chimera, that's it. A chimera comes, and it's it's part snake, part tiger, part goat, and it looks pretty frightening at first, and you think, gee, this episode might actually get dark when the chimera finally shows up. It might leading into Apple Bloom facing real danger. And then the chimera speaks. And it has, of course, humorous moments and turns out to be a wacky antisocial monster with sibling issues just like her. And the chimera pretty much goes downhill once Applejack shows up. Yeah, Applejack, who spent the entire episode being a total mother, finally kicks butt, and it turns out the chimera wasn't that scary to begin with because it sucked at fighting. And, as you guessed it, Apple Bloom proves to Applejack that she is a strong, independent girl who can take care of herself. making the entire episode entirely pointless if Applejack just let Apple Bloom watch the house to begin with. This felt like it could have been downgraded to more of a B plot for an episode, but Applejack is completely out of character. It's kind of insulting to see how much she distrusts her sister, despite it being established that they have a strong bond already. The Chimera was pretty much a false lead into something that could have gone dark, then ended up being incredibly stupid. This episode was not the best episode to base your opinion on Applejack. I'd definitely give this one a pass. Number 3. Rainbow Falls. Yes, another Rainbow Dash episode managed to make this list. Rainbow Falls is about Rainbow Dash trying to live up to her element's loyalty. She, Fluttershy, and Bulk Biceps, because Fluttershy and Bulk Biceps are the most athletic ponies in Ponyville, decide to sign up as a team for their version of the Olympics. And, of course, Rainbow Dash doesn't like how they do in the competition. Fluttershy, of course, being incredibly weak, and Bulk Biceps not even having the ability to fly because his wings shrunk due to steroid overdose. And, of course, the Wonderbolts appear in their team, who are entering the Olympics, but one of their own gets injured, so they need a replacement. And Dash, being a fangirl of the Wonderbolts, thinks about possibly joining them. She temporarily partners up with them during practice, but then she has to make the choice of either choosing her weak team of Fluttershy and Bulk Biceps, or choosing the winners, Wonderbolts, Spitfire, and new generic Wonderbolts. And, of course, the main conflict here is, can Rainbow Dash live up to the element of loyalty? As you can guess, of course, she chooses Fluttershy and Bulk Biceps, which makes this entirely pointless, because we knew where this episode was going to begin with, and it's not very that funny. Rainbow Dash is not very humorous in this episode, and there's not a lot of comedy. They actually try to over-dramatize it. And I couldn't believe the blatant fan service to the base by having Derpy, of course, be Rainbow Dash's replacement in case she couldn't make it on their team. Yes, they had to shove in Derpy into this episode, and she doesn't even speak, even though she's a temporary replacement if Dash doesn't join their team. This episode was pretty much basically a filler arc. This was supposed to lead up to Rainbow Dash getting her key to unlock the magic chest, which was very built up in the finale to Season 4. However, it felt very painful to get through. Rainbow Dash is pretty much supposed to live up to her element, so that way she would get a reward from someone she influenced, so it would later turn into a key to unlock Twilight's magic chest. Yeah, it sounds complicated, and this episode barely tried to explain Rainbow Dash's reasons for getting the key. Out of all the episodes where the main six were trying to live up to their elements to earn a key to unlock the magical chest that's been built up for Season 4, this was probably the worst. Heck, even in the Season 4 finale, they completely gloss over and poke fun about how Rainbow Dash's tail is the most boring. Yeah, when the writers even make fun of their own episode, you know it's gotta be bad. Rainbow Falls is pretty much just building up to Rainbow Dash getting her key, and that's about it. Nothing else interesting happens. The Wonderbolts are jerks again who have to learn from Rainbow Dash correcting them. If you want to see Rainbow Falls, I recommend seeing it once so you know how Rainbow Dash gets her key. But it's not exactly the kind of episode where you want to ever see it again. Number 2. Castle Sweet Castle. This is one of the newer episodes. Guess what the conflict in this episode is? It turns out Twilight isn't happy living in her ginormous castle and feels lonely. So the main six decide they should decorate it for her. And that's about it. The episode is pretty much about the girls redecorating a house. I'm serious. My Little Pony is having girls redecorating a house as the main conflict. I love My Little Pony, but if I was to recommend the show to a friend and this was the episode they watch, they think I was mental. This episode is boring. The conflict is lame, and it pretty much is a filler episode, much like Rainbow Falls. Only this time the entire episode is filler, not building up to anything. In the end, they uproot a tree, thinking that this isn't going to cause problems by keeping it indoors in your dining rooms, and decide that Twilight likes it. Yes, the entire episode, and all they did was put a tree root in her ceiling. This episode was dumb, boring, and pretty much lame. There's not that much humor in it. The song I do recommend. It's actually very good, but if I were to recommend this episode, the song is the only thing I would suggest as the good thing. Otherwise, sitting through it is pretty much a bore fest. Castle Sweet Castle is a boring episode with no major conflict, and it doesn't even give character development to any of the main six. If anything, it pokes fun at it, because the main six try their own decorating designs, and wouldn't you know, they all end up failing by clashing together. Castle Sweet Castle is one of the most boring episodes I've seen in this series, and I recommend skipping it. And finally, we reach our number one. This was a bit of a hard choice to make, so we had 2 episodes fill the gap. I'm sorry if you don't like that, but we couldn't choose between these 2.
Every pony saying you should learn to express your voice, but if talk doesn't seem like it's the answer, luckily you have a choice. When you find you've got the music, and you find you've got the music, in you.
Come and witness the amazing magic of the great and powerful Trixie!
Philly Vanilli and Ghostbusters. Yes, these 2 episodes were considered the worst, and we actually had to have a tie for them. Let's talk about Philly Vanilli first. Philly Vanilli pretty much is the main episode where it ruined Fluttershy's character. And yes, worse than putting your hoof down. Philly Vanilli, it turns out the conflict is Fluttershy can't sing in front of others. Then what has she been doing for the entire series? Fluttershy has sung in front of others before. Are we supposed to assume every time Fluttershy sung, she was having a psychological breakdown and fantasizing it in her head about singing? Yes, they actually expect us to believe that Fluttershy has never sung in front of anyone this entire time, despite this being in Season 4. Even if this is your first episode of My Little Pony, you'd probably call out Fluttershy for singing in the theme song in front of everyone else. Yes, they're really trying to convince us that Fluttershy has never been singing at all in this series so far, and that she's been too shy to sing in public since forever. Fluttershy is pretty much suffering from stage fright, which is pretty much a standard plot for Fluttershy, but really, she's never sing in public? This is the biggest example of continuity error I have ever seen in the show. While My Little Pony has had some continuity errors here and there, this is the most blatant one you might ever call out. Fluttershy can't sing, and she's pretty much spending the entire episode learning how to sing, and to have the bravery to sing in front of others, because apparently she can only sing in front of animals this entire time. Yeah, they really want us to believe that Fluttershy never sung this whole time. I still can't get over that. But besides Fluttershy suffering from continuity error disease, Pinkie Pie completely acts out of character and spends the entire episode making Fluttershy feel bad about herself by screaming at her like a maniac and guilt-tripping her all the time. Yes, Pinkie Pie, who actually admitted that she doesn't be mean to Fluttershy, is mean to Fluttershy in this entire episode. Pinkie Pie is out of character, and Fluttershy is completely character derailed in this episode by having a huge continuity error ruin it for the sake of plot. And worst of all, the song is completely boring. This was not Daniel Ingram's best work in the entire show. Philly Vanilli is boring, has so many plot holes, and completely derails multiple characters that you love. I'd recommend not watching this episode at all. It has no bearing on the plot whatsoever, and Philly Vanilli is one of the worst that Bronies have ever called out. But on a side note, it turns out another worst episode manages to somehow share that record with Philly Vanilli. This episode is Ghostbusters. This episode is considered by many to be the worst, but to be fair, the show was still starting out when this one was released. In this episode, a new pony named Trixie comes in, and she does magic tricks for the civilians. However, she brags about her success and rubs it in everyone's faces. So the main six decide to rub it in her face that they're much better by stealing the show from her and upstaging her by showing off their own tricks. Yeah, our heroes want to steal the show from Trixie, who's just doing this for entertainment and money. Applejack, Rainbow Dash, and Birdie all upstage her by showing off how much better they are, forcing Trixie to kind of defend herself by humiliating them. To be fair, Trixie might have had a point in humiliating them. We don't like Trixie on this channel, but calling her an outright villain is kind of pushing it a little too far. Trixie might not be the most evil character in this episode, but the writers really want us to think so, considering that they keep calling her the antagonist. The main six all hate her guts, and Spike keeps trying to push that Twilight's better than her. Twilight, Twilight, Twilight. Oh, but it gets better. This is the episode that also introduced Snips and Snails, the first major male ponies introduced in the series. And wouldn't you know, thousands of people hated them. This is how My Little Pony is going to represent male characters in their show, by having them be ugly, stupid, obnoxious, perverted, and of course, lethally unintelligent by bringing a bear into their village to destroy it. Oh yeah, they want to prove that Trixie's a real magician because they're in love with her and whatever, so they lure a giant Ursa Minor into town so they can have Trixie kill it to show that she's really a badass like she claims she is. And of course, Trixie, turns out, she wasn't magic all along, and Twilight is forced to step in and save her. While I do commend this episode for giving hefty amount of character development for Twilight, this episode, all the supporting characters are very badly written. Spike is kind of annoying, but trying to tell that Twilight's the super savior and the messiah of Ponyville by telling how much magical she is. Trixie is not exactly evil enough to be a villain, though she is annoying. But she's not doing this out of, maliciousness. She just wants to make money, so she does it by using her magic to perform tricks. So yeah, she is bad for lying and bragging about her success, which isn't true, but that's what magicians do in their work. Snips and Snails, oh yeah, they're the worst male characters in the entire series, and thankfully they got demoted to extra after this episode. But guess what? After the bear destroys the town, Trixie is left in financial ruin and exiles herself by running away, having no money and no home whatsoever, thanks to our heroes. Oh, and Snips and Snails for bringing a bear into town? They're rewarded with it for its mustaches. Yeah, Snips and Snails are rewarded for destroying the town by bringing a dangerous creature in and nearly killing and making thousands of ponies homeless because they wanted to show a magician's tales were real, and they get mustaches thanks to it. Snips and Snails get no punishment whatsoever for their stupidity. And Twilight realizes that it's okay to have magical powers just as long as you don't brag about it, even though she's telling this to Celestia, who is her mentor and possibly bragging about her success. Ghostbusters and Milli Vanilli are two of the worst episodes. If you feel one is worse than the other, then please post a comment in the comment section. We hope you enjoyed this list, and we tried to really narrow down the worst episodes, so we hope you managed to see why these episodes are bad. If you still like them, that's okay. That's your opinion. We hope you enjoyed this video, and join us again next time here on Wolf vs. Ponies. Goodbye.